When a smug journalist tried to humiliate Leonardo DiCaprio in front of a packed audience, he fired back with one statement that left the entire room in stunned silence. Cameras were rolling. The internet wasn't ready for what happened next. The setting: a high-profile climate summit in New York. The crowd: a mix of journalists, activists, and A-list celebrities hanging onto every word. Leonardo DiCaprio, a man known for his passion for environmental causes, had just delivered a powerful speech on climate change. The room buzzed with energy, applause, nodding heads, murmurs of agreement. But then, he stood up. A journalist in the front row, arms crossed, smirk locked in place. Everyone recognized him, a notorious media provocateur known for mocking celebrities who speak about climate change. He adjusted his mic, took a deep breath, and then, "Leo, you're a fantastic actor, but don't you think it's kind of hypocritical to fly around in private jets while lecturing us about carbon footprints?" The room froze. Gasps rippled through the audience. A few people chuckled. Some exchanged nervous glances. Leo's expression: calm, composed, unshaken. The journalist leaned in, sensing weakness. "I mean, come on," he continued, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Do you really think the world needs another Hollywood millionaire preaching about saving the planet?" The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. All eyes on DiCaprio. And then he spoke. Leo took a slow breath. The crowd leaned in, waiting. Then, with zero hesitation, he locked eyes with the journalist and said, "Let me ask you something." Silence. "If a doctor smokes, does that mean he can't warn his patients about lung cancer?" The journalist's smirk twitched. "If a firefighter has a barbecue, does that mean he can't put out fires?" A wave of murmurs swept through the audience. People turned to each other, eyebrows raised. Leo didn't stop. "The truth is, I've dedicated my platform, my money, and my time to fighting climate change. I fund research, I invest in solutions, and I push for real policies that make a difference." The journalist shifted in his seat. "So tell me, should we ignore the message just because the messenger isn't perfect?" The crowd erupted. Applause, cheers, a few standing ovations. The journalist opened his mouth to respond, but he had nothing. Leo had flipped the script on him, and he wasn't done yet. The journalist blinked, scrambling for a comeback. But Leo, he wasn't letting up. "See, the problem isn't that I fly on a plane," he gestured to the room. "The problem is that industries, corporations, and governments refuse to make real change while distracting people like you with easy targets." The energy in the room shifted. People nodded. The journalist looked around, realizing the audience was turning on him. Leo leaned forward, voice calm but deadly precise. "You want to talk about hypocrisy? Let's talk about oil companies that spend billions covering up their pollution while blaming regular people for using plastic straws." Oof. That one hit. Even the journalist's colleagues were whispering among themselves now. Leo wasn't finished. "I could disappear tomorrow, stop speaking, stop funding, stop fighting. But guess what?" His eyes locked on the journalist. "The problem wouldn't go away. It would just be easier for people like you to ignore." The clapback had landed. The journalist's smirk, gone, his confidence, shaken. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. And Leo, he just sat back, waiting for a response. The journalist opened his mouth, closed it. He had nothing. A moment of painful silence. Then, a slow clap. One person. Then two. Then the whole room, exploding into applause. The journalist's face burned red. He adjusted his mic, scrambling to regain control. Okay, he stammered, forcing a chuckle. "But come on, Leo. You really think Hollywood is the solution? You guys preach from your mansions while the rest of us actually live in the real world." A few in the audience murmured, some intrigued, some skeptical. "Leo?" He just smiled. "You're right." "Wait, what?" The journalist looked shocked. He wasn't expecting that. Leo leaned in. "Hollywood alone won't fix this. Neither will journalists. Neither will activists. But that's the thing. You don't solve big problems by tearing down the people trying to help." Boom. Another direct hit. The journalist scoffed, trying to shake it off. "So what?" You expect the world to just listen to you because you're famous? Leo shook his head. I expect people to listen because the facts are real, because every scientist, every researcher, every environmental expert is saying the same thing. And if I can use my platform to amplify their voices... He shrugged, letting the words sink in. Then I'll take the criticism, because this isn't about me. It's about the truth. The journalist, cornered. The audience, hanging on every word. The balance of power had completely shifted. And Leo was about to finish this. The journalist was sweating now. He looked around, searching for backup, but the room was against him. Leo, unshaken, in control. You know, it's funny, he said, leaning back in his chair. Every time someone tries to talk about real issues, there's always a guy like you. The journalist frowned. A guy like me? Leo nodded. Yeah. The guy who doesn't actually want to talk about the problem. The guy who just wants to make it about the person talking. The audience reacted. A few quiet chuckles, some nods. Leo kept going. Because if you can turn me into the story, you don't have to deal with the actual issue. Boom. Another shot fired. The journalist shifted uncomfortably. Leo's voice stayed calm, controlled. But here's the thing. I don't care what you think about me. I care that our planet is collapsing. I care that scientists are begging us to act. And I care that people like you would rather score cheap points than do anything about it. The journalist's jaw tightened. He had nothing left. The room, dead silent. Then, an explosion of applause. People rose to their feet, cheering. Even some of the journalist's own colleagues joined in. The journalist, humiliated, he tried to laugh it off, but it was over. He had lost. Leo? He just gave a small nod, stood up, and walked off stage. He had said everything he needed to say. And the internet? It was about to go wild. The moment Leo walked off stage, the journalist slumped back in his chair, defeated. Cameras were still rolling. The audience was still buzzing. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were already flooding social media. Headlines exploded. Leonardo DiCaprio silences journalist with one brutal response. Journalist tries to mock DiCaprio, gets publicly schooled. Millions of views, thousands of comments. And the reaction? Overwhelming. Some called it the greatest comeback ever caught on tape. Others pointed out the hypocrisy of the journalist, calling him out for attacking individuals instead of addressing real issues. Even experts chimed in, backing Leo's points with hard facts. The journalist? He tried to spin it, released a half-hearted response. But it was too late. The internet had already decided the winner, and Leo, he never even had to say another word. His message had been heard, louder than ever. Days passed, but the debate refused to die down. News channels picked up the story. Panel discussions, reaction videos, think pieces. Everyone had an opinion. Some defended the journalist, saying he was just asking tough questions. But the majority, they saw it for what it was, a desperate attempt to discredit someone trying to make a difference. Leo, meanwhile, stayed silent. No follow-up interviews, no social media statements, because he didn't need to. The clip spoke for itself. And as the dust settled, one thing became clear. This moment wasn't just about Leo. It was about every activist, scientist, and ordinary person who had ever been shut down, mocked, or dismissed for speaking the truth. People saw themselves in that exchange, and they realized something powerful. It's easy to attack the messenger, but it doesn't change the message. The impact of Leo's words went beyond the headlines. People who had never cared about climate change before were now paying attention. Discussions shifted from celebrity hypocrisy to actual solutions. Scientists and activists used the viral moment to push for policies, raise awareness, and call out the industries responsible for the real damage. And Leo? He quietly continued his work, funding conservation projects, supporting clean energy, using his influence to keep the conversation alive. Meanwhile, the journalist. His name faded from the headlines. His moment of controversy became just another forgotten argument, because in the end, it was never about him. It was about the truth, and the truth always finds a way to be heard. Moral of the story? When people don't have real answers, they attack the ones asking the questions. But facts don't disappear just because someone tries to discredit the messenger. And no matter how loud the noise gets, the truth always wins.